refugees as Greece announces extension of its overcrowded migrant detention camps. And all set for Malawi's presidential election rerun. Hello and welcome to Telesur English. I am Estefania Bravo in Quito, Ecuador. This is from the south. Venezuela has kicked off with a new period of radical quarantine in the South American country. Our correspondent, Leonel Retamal, has more from Caracas.
Así despierta Caracas este lunes 22 de junio. Hoy comienza un nuevo periodo de cuarentena radical, como han denominado las autoridades, con el fin de establecer nuevas medidas de control para evitar la propagación y contagio de la COVID-19. Estas medidas se toman luego de que en los últimos días Venezuela haya presentado algunos incrementos de sus cifras de contagio que, sin embargo, siguen estando muy por debajo de los índices de contagio y de mortalidad tanto regionales aquí en Sudamérica como a nivel internacional. Las autoridades han informado que el día de hoy se aplicarán medidas de restricción de movilidad entre estados e incluso entre municipios dentro de los estados.
We'll get back to that story. Let's go to Brazil now, where officially has surpassed 50,000 coronavirus deaths on Sunday, with more than 1 million total cases across the country. Brazil, the world's second COVID-19 hotspot, is following the United States now and has a total of 1,085,038 confirmed cases and 50,617 deaths. But experts have continued to warn that real numbers are likely a lot higher due to a lack of testing. Thousands have protested in several Brazilian states demanding the resignation of far-right President Jair Bolsonaro. As part of ongoing mobilizations against the government and in rejection of racism, social organization and health workers' unions have continued to raise their voices against what they say is a lacking response to the pandemic. Citizens widely agree that Bolsonaro has not done much to fight the emergency, as Brazil currently stands as the second country most affected by COVID-19, surpassing 1 million cases.
What is real is that we did not want to be in this situation. We wanted to stay home, caring for our health, for our families, but we cannot just remain silent. Silence is useless as the government attacks our democracy, attacks our rights. We are out there to defend freedom, justice, democracy, but above all, the life of our people.
Moving on, Guyana's Court of Appeal is set to rule on the legal challenge seeking to prevent the Elections Commission GCOM from using the results of the recount from the March 2nd elections to make a final decision. The announcement was made by the president of the court's panel, Justice Don Gregory. Esleen David, a private citizen and government supporter, filed the lawsuit calling on GCOM to disclose whether the general and regional elections were fair and credible before announcing the results. However, GCOM says only the High Court has jurisdiction to determine the validity and credibility of the polls. Argentina's coronavirus deaths crossed 1,000 on Sunday and infections spiked to over 40,000 as cases in Latin America surged past the 2 million mark.
1,000 people have died so far as a result of the pandemic in our country. The mortality rate has fallen to 2.4% of the total number of confirmed cases, and Argentina's death rate is 21.9 cases per million residents. There are 41,204 total confirmed cases in our country since the beginning of the pandemic. 90.8 cases per 100,000 residents is the incident rate.
Bolivia's de facto president, Janine Áñez, has agreed to approve a law to hold elections on September 6th of this year. The announcement came following a meeting with the president of the Supreme Electoral Court, Salvador Romero. As such, the Bolivian people have been guaranteed that they will be able to elect a leader democratically, 10 months after the successful coup against President Evo Morales. For her part, Áñez said that she will work to have safe elections with the least amount of possible infections of COVID-19. The death toll of COVID-19 in the U.S. continues to rise. As of Sunday, authorities reported close to 120,000 deaths. According to the Johns Hopkins University, the death toll stands at 119,959 as of Sunday. There has also been projections that the nation will face an exponential rise in coronavirus cases this week in the states of Texas, Florida, and Arizona. Meanwhile, racial tensions are still rising in the nation following the ongoing police killings of African American citizens. Supporters of the U.S. president faced off with Black Lives Matter protesters and faced outside the venue in Tulsa, Oklahoma. After the rally, police used pepper spray to disperse protesters who temporarily blocked a police convoy.
My family was Irish. They came over from Ireland. Do you think that they owned slaves? Do you think that they benefited all the way up from Ellis Island?
But you and I have benefited from the system that's in place. It's easier to get loans. It's easier to get a house. We don't get treated the same in the store as other people of color. We don't.
U.S. President Donald Trump has said he would consider meeting with Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro. In an exclusive interview with Axios, President Maduro said he would, quote, maybe think about that, adding that Maduro would like to meet him and that he is never opposed to meetings. In the same interview, Trump also suggests that he's had second thoughts about his decision to recognize Juan Guaidó as the legitimate leader of Venezuela. More stories coming up. Don't go away. Welcome back. More news now. From Monday, Trinidad and Tobago will enter phase 5 of easing coronavirus restrictions. This will see bars, beaches, casinos, cinemas, gyms, and malls resume operations. The borders, the sole part of phase 6, remains closed. However, the Prime Minister says CARICOM countries are being pressured by large airlines to reopen.
Those countries that have big airlines that service us all the time, a lot of pressure on our CARICOM neighbors now to open their borders to those transport under the understanding that if they don't do it now, they won't be able to do it for another 6 months and they would miss the winter season, so you better get on board now. That's the kind of pressure that my colleagues are under. And I don't know that that is the best way to be having to deal with it, but the airlines are making that offer. If you want to get in on the winter transport, if things get better, you may find that you have no transport if your system gets better.
Antigua and Barbuda's Prime Minister Gaston Brown has hinted at the possibility that the country could host early elections. In a Facebook post last week, Brown said his 6-year-old Labour Party, which has 15 seats, could win all 17 in the parliament based on the slate of candidates of the opposition United Progressive Party, UPP. He added that the polls constitutionally due in 2023 could be as early as November of next year. Brown made the revelation after a list with names of UPP candidates began circulating. Amid global concerns about police brutality, the Caribbean island of Belize is addressing allegations of sexual misconduct in the upper ranks of the defense force. This allows an investigation that started in January into complaints of sexual advances and assault against women.
And we have to do a little more vetting to ensure that we have the right people doing the training. Because they're all trained as instructors, but just to have the right personality to train civilians who want to be soldiers now. There are female instructors who are assigned to that location. So to continue to have to say that there are these culture of sexual assaults and allegations, I don't believe it is a culture. It might be a one-off, two-off incident that we try and address immediately, because that is not something that we want to perpetrate here in the force.
The Caribbean is suffering from a plume of Saharan dust that emerged off Western Africa last weekend. This dry dust plume, known as the Saharan air layer or SAL, traveled over 3,000 miles across the Atlantic Ocean to the eastern Caribbean Sea. According to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration's Hurricane Research Division, it commonly forms from late spring through early fall and moves into the tropical Atlantic Ocean every 3 to 5 days. People with respiratory illnesses are urged to stay indoors. Libya's UN-backed Government of National Accord, GNA, says it will boycott conflict resolution talks to be held by Arab League of Foreign Ministers on Tuesday. Foreign Minister Mohamed Taher Siala said the GNA will not participate because it was not consulted prior to the setting up of the meeting. The talks, to be held via video conference, was called by Egypt, a key supporter of the Tripoli government's arch rival, General Khalifa Haftar. The two sides have been involved in a violent conflict since last year, when Haftar launched an offensive to wrestle control of Tripoli. Meanwhile, Egypt's President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi has threatened to send soldiers into Libya if Turkish-backed GNA forces attack Haftar's troops in the strategic cities of Sirte and Jufra. Sisi says Egypt has a legitimate right to intervene in Libya and order the military to be ready for deployment outside the country. Turkey's support for the GNA has reversed a 14-month assault on Tripoli by forces loyal to Haftar, backed by the United Arab Emirates and Egypt. A 525-bed field hospital is being built by the Akik Institution in Iraq at the Baghdad International Fair Exhibition Center. As hospitals overflow with patients, the Iraqi government announced that the temporary field hospitals will open throughout the capital. Iraqi's health system was already battered by years of conflict, as well as poor infrastructure and lack of funds. Reports state that in Iraq, current figures of COVID-19 infections are 3,000, with 1,100 deaths. Palestine's President Mahmoud Abbas and Jordan's Foreign Minister Ayman Safadi have held talks to discuss Israel's plan to annex large parts of the West Bank. Safadi, who arrived in Ramallah on Friday, told members of the media that he delivered a letter from the Jordanian king on the continued coordination between both countries. He reaffirmed Jordan's rejection of any plan that seeks to grab Palestinian territory. The annexation plan is part of U.S. President Donald Trump's so-called Middle East plan, which has been widely condemned across the region. Meanwhile, the Central Committee of the Fatah Liberation Movement has called on Palestinians to launch peaceful popular resistance against the Israeli annexation plan.
Annexation means ending our cause. On the other hand, we stress that an independent Palestinian state is a necessary element in the conflict's equation, in achieving regional stability and world peace to resolve our conflict on the basis of the international legitimate decisions. We adhere to international legitimacy. We don't see bloody violence as serving our case at this stage. We struggle in a national, regional, and international space. If we maintain this confrontation between what this occupation is doing and the interests and values of the world, we believe that this is a success. Nobody is allowed to tell us that Netanyahu and his coalition were elected. Hitler was elected. Mussolini was also elected. And let's go back into history and read it well. Now, if he goes on with the annexation, I tell you, we will not raise a white flag. We will not die alone. We will not suffer alone. And we will not allow the settlers, bullying, and the symbols of the occupation to continue.
The government of Uganda has highlighted a critical situation for refugees in the country caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. Uganda provides shelter to about 1.4 million refugees and asylum seekers, as they will now receive economical aid of $257 million thanks to the refugee programs. On Saturday, in the framework of the Global Refugee Day, the World Bank confirmed the aid for Uganda. According to the WFP, the country has been at risk of starvation as food supplies are estimated to run out soon. Candidates in Malawi's historic presidential rerun, slated for Tuesday, have held final campaign rallies across the country. Opposition torchbearer and candidate for the Malawi Congress Party, Lazarus Chakwera, addressed thousands of supporters in the central business district of the capital, Lilongwe. Ruling party candidate Peter Mutharika also mobilized his supporters in another part of the capital. Tuesday's election is practically a two-horse race between Mutharika and Chakwera. The polls have almost 5 months after the Constitutional Court annulled the result of a disputed vote last year.
And I'm prepared when Malawians vote me into office to serve them honestly, to serve them with integrity, to serve them with the knowledge and the know-how that all of us put together create a synergy of true leadership in this country. I'm ready. This electoral commission has been in office just about 2 weeks. I have been impressed by the manner in which they have, so to speak, hit the ground running. And I have confidence that they want to do what is right, protecting the rights of Malawians as they make their choice.
In South Africa, the Economic Freedom Fighters Party, EFF, has rejected plans by the South African Broadcasting Corporation to retrench 600 workers. A statement by the party said there was no justification for laying off workers at a time when the state broadcaster is experiencing notable financial stability and audience growth. The party has appealed to workers' unions to reject what it described as ridiculous and narrow reasoning that seeks to thrive at the expense of the livelihoods of workers. We're taking one last break, but stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. Greece announced on Saturday another extension of the coronavirus lockdown in its crowded migrant camps. The Migration Ministry said confinement for residents of reception and identification centers across the country would be extended to July 5th. It was due to have ended on June 22nd. Greece was quick to introduce strict confinement measures in migrant camps on March 21st before it imposed a more general lockdown on March 23rd.
About this virus, we just pray that it don't come here, because if just one person can get this virus in here, you should be sure that all of this camp will die, because there is not enough doctor, there is not enough devices for controlling anything. Is not here. When they said this camp is controlled, it means that they didn't let people to go anywhere. Just for giving some drugs, they can go to the city, and this camp is like a prison.
An Italian migrant rescue ship has brought dozens of migrants to safety in the first such arrival since the coronavirus pandemic eased. The Mare Ionio ship, with 67 refugees on board, and its arrival in Sicily were hailed by human rights organizations who noted the unusual speed with which the government assigned the Mediterranean charity group a port. The human rights organization Mediterranean, who led the effort, said the migrants had been without drinking water for 2 days. The group called for a port of safety to be extended to the German Sea Watch 3 vessel, which took on board around 100 people off the coast of Libya earlier in the week. Spain has lifted the state of emergency that had been in place for more than 3 months since the start of the coronavirus pandemic. The country has reopened its borders to visitors from most of Europe and is allowing British tourists entry without having to undergo a quarantine period. But social distancing rules remain in place, as people have to stay 1.5 meters apart in public and wear masks inside shops and public transport. The SOE was declared on March 14th as the nation dealt with one of the worst COVID-19 outbreaks in the world.
The truth is that you are a bit scared. When you are walking down the street, you see groups of police officers, even though you haven't done anything. but it gives you a shock. I will finally see my family. I'm from Alicante, so it's great, really.
I'm a little bit nervous because it's the first time I travel since the COVID-19 appeared, and there's a lot of people, so I don't know. Since there have been new outbreaks, I think people won't be very convinced and relaxed when traveling. But well, I'm going to travel, and whatever happens, I hope I will be fine.
Serbians have gone to the polls in Europe's first parliamentary election since emerging from the coronavirus lockdown. Early results show President Aleksandar Vučić on track to win 63% of the vote amid a boycott called by an opposition alliance and concerns about the novel coronavirus. Trailing in second place was the Socialist Party with roughly 10% of the ballot, while third went to the right-wing Serbian Patriotic Alliance, getting 4% of the votes.
Expect Mr. Vučić, as the leader of the largest political party, to begin a process to shift power from the hands of the individuals to institutions of the system. I believe that this is the most important task to be done in the future.
I think it will be better, although I find that the outgoing government has done a good job. Now is the time to judge their work. I wish good luck to whoever is elected. Hopefully, it will be better for the people.
And with that, we've come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And be sure to follow us on social media as well. We are on Facebook, on Twitter, and of course on Instagram. For Telesur English, I am Estefania Bravo. Until next time.